In the run-up to the last general elections, the Rakyat were treated to a barrage of proposed economic reforms that looked good on paper and even more impressive through media campaigns which cost millions of ringgit of taxpayers' money. All kinds of promises and pledges were made. However, among the first actions taken by the government immediately after the general election was to raise the price of petrol and sugar. Since then, it's been one after another round of price increases, while the promised reforms turn out to be mere sound bites. Just yesterday, the Rakyat were presented with a great Hari Raya present, 50 to 100% hike in fees payable to driving licenses. The problem of inflation causes hardship to the people. When the rate of growth in monthly income for the working people lags behind the rate of inflation, hardship flows. Household debt at 86.6% of the GDP. Our household debt is one of the highest in the world. Now, on the issue of inequality and the widening gap between the rich and the poor, which is not understood by the Barisan National Government, particularly UMNO, because they can accept this differentiation. As far as they are concerned, the policy is to enrich Malays. But what they mean is, of course, the family members and the cronies. We dispute that because we think the wealth of this nation must be shared to a larger number of Malaysians. At a high Gini coefficient of around 0.46, the top 20% of households own more than half of the gross national income, while the bottom 40% own less than 1/6. Our GDP for 2013 stood at 312.44 billion US dollars. But almost 45% of our local sovereign bond market is foreign owned. Our economy therefore is exhibiting classic signs of overheating, including credit growth. Government debt to GDP ratio is at 54.8%. Household debt 86.6% of GDP. Corporate debt approaching 96% of GDP. Now this is a repeat of the unbridled American free market capitalism in the wake of 2007 subprime crisis. Amid the early reference to KIDEX. Now detractors have said that we should not complain about highway projects such as KIDEX if you want better transport. But they are missing the point. KIDEX is not the best answer to the people's need for good and cheap public transport. There is a moral culpability here in both the federal and state governments when in the face of rising chorus of opposition from the people, they choose not to hear, but instead ride roughshod over their pleas. We have advised the state government to take heed of these concerns. Similarly, approvals or when exercising powers under the Land Acquisition Act. For example, failure to respect national customary rights would only stir conflicts and lead to injustice, as we have witnessed in several major instances in Sarawak. We therefore recommend sustained growth to create productive jobs for a wide section of the population, social inclusion to equalize access to opportunity, social safety nets to mitigate vulnerability and risk and prevent extreme poverty. And that include labor market reforms, a minimum wage, and financial grants and productivity boosting measures. Dr. Zakaria made reference to GST as a weapon, but our concern is more crony capitalism, wastage, and not to pursue new tax ventures without dealing with corruption and leakages. So we must maintain that we need to promote inclusive growth, which includes social justice agenda, housing for the poor, democratization of access to education, strengthening domestic economic resilience, programs for women and youth.